Launch team wishes you good luck and Godspeed.
Space Monkeys blasting off about liquid staking with the guys from Bifrost. We have head of business strategy Thibault and Tyrone, the project manager, on the show. Guys, thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks a lot, Jay. Nice to be here.
Thanks, Jay. Very pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it is an exciting time in the Bifrost world. I see you guys are leading the pack going into this next Parachain auction on Polkadot. I was very excited to see you guys going for Polkadot's slot there. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you guys plan to do once you get that slot.
So that's actually ready for the migration from Kusama to Polkadot in the next following months or next year. That depends on the the material or the situation of development of the Polkadot common bridge between Kusama and Polkadot.
Yes, okay.
So, yeah, we want definitely just focus on one community, but not the separate one. I think we need to focus on one community.
Yeah.
So experienced users with DeFi, so they can give us more of advice on the development of the DeFi progressing and the product development. So we need some experienced users, and we need to definitely accumulate of these users. So focus on one community and one chain, and one mainnet is the ultimate goal for us. So Polkadot Parachain we are beating, but I have to say maybe there's no more creative functions will be launch aggressive or launch very soon in the Polkadot Parachain, and we just focus on the Kusama one for following year and migrate all the things fluently.
Gotcha. Okay, so like a few other projects, I think Kilt is in this category. Zeitgeist might be here. You guys are going to maintain just a single chain. What made you guys go for a Polkadot Parachain at this point? Did you guys just want to lock it down and have that out of the way, or what was the thinking there? The
Polkadot Parachain is actually an enterprise level parachain blockchain. So that's her is very enthusiastic, right?
Yeah.
So I have to say, from general aspects, all the functions and the chains backed from different levels that is multiple times than the Kusama. So I have to say these steps we have to step forward from Kusama to Polkadot.
Yeah.
So it's not of business with current strategy to do the DeFi things, but I think that's a long-term strategy that we have to move forward from Kusama to Polkadot.
Well, Tyrone, I've been seeing you around the space. I mean, ever since you guys were running for your initial Parachain on Kusama there. Thibault, you've kind of popped up more recently onto the radar here. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you're doing at the company and the state that you found things in when you arrived.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm actually pretty new to the Bifrost family, but not necessarily to DeFi. I actually been in crypto since 2016. But my past was in traditional finance. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, traditional finance background for about 6-7 years, and then making actually took a big change in my career. Took a step back, moved to China and learned Mandarin. And then after 2 years, sort of studying the language, jumped into the DeFi, rabbit hole and found a mutual sort of, interest with Bifrost, and I was really happy with what they were doing.
Yeah,
really interested as well, and they provided the sort of the platform for me to integrate.
Mm-hmm.
It's been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I started in January, so took a bit of time to adapt. But yeah, I officially joined as head of strategy for Bifrost, and it's been quite interesting because obviously we're still very much a small small team compared to other projects.
Sure.
Part of the team is, I would say, majoritarily, engineers on that front. The strategy was more perhaps done by, obviously Lurpis and working directly with Tyrone on that front.
Yep.
And I've joined in to sort of, I think, add more resources to that, doing a lot of stuff which obviously Lurpis was doing, I think, Tyrone was doing as well. So I've jumped in, and what my goal here is now basically I'm sitting between obviously the co-founders, CTO and Tyrone in terms of, product, what makes sense, the utility around that, and then going out there to speaking to the different projects within Polkadot and Kusama, and then going obviously to different ecosystems, and then obviously also taking the other stand, which is as a user, where is the utility, what makes sense. So sort of trying to bridge both aspects. So that's sort of where I've joined. It's been great so far.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what was the utility you saw there?
Well, I was always very interested in the concept of proof of stake, obviously staking as well, and the limitations there, in terms of opportunity and liquidity, constraints. And obviously, I was familiar with Lido in terms of what they were doing, and obviously I wasn't too familiar, I would say, as an investor, yes, but not on the builders side, tech side of Polkadot and Kusama.
Sure.
So obviously, as I jumped in, looking at more how the parachains are building out and everybody's doing their own thing, but also at the same time, strategically collaborating together and seeing utility amongst parachains.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting, and how Bifrost ended up wanting to sort of identify itself as bridging that in terms of providing staking liquidity derivatives to these different POS networks within sort of Polkadot and Kusama.
Yep.
So that really attracted me. Yeah, and we're at the start of the adventure now, really. Things are starting to pick up, which is great.
Yeah, I feel like since you guys launched, I mean, I think you were the 5th parachain actually to connect to Kusama, which is, I think that's correct. It was pretty amazing. But this vision of cross-chain liquid derivatives was actually kind of hampered a bit by the underlying technology. I mean, we are only recently getting the cross-chain messaging firing up. As we spoke about before, we still don't have the relay-to-relay chain bridge there. So Tyrone, what can you tell us about how strategy has shifted, or how you guys have been building around the limitations of the technology so far?
Sure, that's quite I think it's the hardest point, and the hardest part that we've experienced for is the XCM, how to say.
Yeah.
As a Polkadot project, that all we believe is in the convenience and most advantage of trustless and decentralized of a way to do the cross chain. So that's why we believed in the Parachain. And by now the XCMP is not mature, but we have an HRMP for the instead of experimental version for the XCMP. So from the beginning, there's only five slots limited for each parachains to open the connection with other parachains, and then now it's 40. We have to say there's a big step forward for the XCM cross chain, and on the other hand, there's still some limitations right there that are closely related to our business. For example, the protocol of Slotauction liquidity protocol in Bifrost palette, that's a palette we use XCM to receive Kusama from users and contribute it to relay chain Crowdloan, and then get the message from the relay chain and mint the derivative for users on Bifrost chain. So the main part on this palette is we receive the message from XCM and translate back to the Bifrost Parachain and receive and minted derivative for users. But right now, the query response of XCM is not fully prepared. So we have to use the Oracle right now for the multisig nodes and to monitor the status of relay chain, as well as staking liquidity pilot. We have to capture all the messages and status of validators on relay chain, so we can generate derivative. And there is XCM v3 and v4 and XCMP, so we can expect that all these query functions will be smoothly get progressing, and then we can I think we can finally have a fully decentralized way for these cross-chain messages we can receive from the relay chain at different parachains. So that's the barriers for now, that we don't have this function, but fortunately we can expect that will definitely happen in this ecosystem. So that's why we stick together right here.
Because you just brought up the Crowdloan, the liquid Crowdloan rewards there, I want to ask you about that. You guys were one of the first to do it. You guys went with like a 2-token structure. I also saw you guys are coming out with version 2.0 of the Slotauction liquidity protocol. What can you tell me about your original design there and how things are going to change in the next version?
Yeah, definitely. At the beginning, we want to just design one token for the SLP derivatives, but it's hard to achieve that with one token and full liquidity behind it, because different Crowdloan projects have different, Crowdloan reward, and at the same time they also have the different list period. So which means the retirement of the fund will be definitely different period to refund. So it's hard to maintain the same and the fungible token for the different list period. And so we have another design is to separate the entity and the utility of the token. So right now is for Crowdloan users, if you contribute through the SLP, you will get two derivatives. One is the VS Kusama, and the other one is the VS bound. So VS bound represent the lease period of a project, and that's actually the lease period of the project. So so you can easily define which project you actually contributed for, and the VS Kusama is totally the fungible token. It's fungible all the same for different Parachain, different and different Crowdloans. So that's actually a solution for the liquidity and the entity of users. And behind the logic, we actually don't get in charge with reward distributions for different projects. They have their own strategy to reward their contributors, and we just let them check the API, so they can have all the details and the information of all the contributions details, and they will have all the transaction hash on the contributions, so they can easily distribute the reward as the same way as all the contributions details in the Polkadot JS.
That's interesting, because I feel like other projects that are trying to do this, they're constantly involved, and they're kind of being middlemen for the rewards in a lot of ways.
That's kind of the at the beginning we think that's makes no sense, because different token has different lists to release and distribution. So they have different TGE period and locking period. So it's hard to do the middleman character. That's related to many complicated manual steps, and I think it's not good to it's not how to say, it's not appropriate way in the decentralized spirit, I have to say. So we just leave it to all of it to protocol, and I think it's more easier for us. And yeah, as you mentioned about why we launched the SLP 2.0, the new version. Yeah, that's we have found that the two token module is kind of way too hard for newbies to understand. So the 2.0 is to wrap two tokens into one.
And then what you guys are also releasing right now is the liquid staking. Thibault, I imagine that this has a lot to do with your role in the company here, because you guys are starting with liquid KSM staking, but I don't imagine you guys are stopping there.
Although I've joined recently, beginning of 2022, I think the Bifrost team was very, very sort of smart in the way they've decided to, position themselves in terms of product releases and updates. Because obviously, as you'd mentioned earlier, liquid staking is coming out at the right time, given how parachains are developing. And obviously, more importantly, we've launched the staking liquidity protocol just recently. We were quite good.
Yeah.
It required a lot of coordination and a lot of thinking from the team in terms of the incentive campaign and how that makes sense for the sort of the longevity of the project, the utility and the value, and how we can sort of incentivize on-chain behavior. Number one, and then number two, obviously we've decided to go about with these different airdrops, with the Kusama Parachain which expired, and that sort of engagement in order to bring more TVL and more users which were probably not familiar with Bifrost. I would say that was sort of the tricky thing, which still is very tricky. But no, coming back to what you were saying, yeah, most definitely, this is the sort of first staking liquidity derivative which is launched, and we've got a pretty busy upcoming roadmap in terms of what we're looking to deliver within the next sort of weeks and months, which we can also touch upon after.
Well, I don't want to read too much into the structure of Kusama here, but you do have HRMP channels open with Kala, Moonriver, and Karura, and StateMine as well. Do you have any plans to do liquid staking products for these Parachain tokens?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, obviously, Tyrone can fill up on the information as well. But yeah, most definitely, very broadly speaking, we obviously have a roadmap in terms of what we're looking to prioritize and what makes sense, given the ecosystems of these different sort of parachains and how developed they are. Yeah, most definitely, that's part of the roadmap. I think the Kusama, there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of the utility and use cases around it, because we are looking for it to be a pretty important pillar and asset within Kusama, and then eventually EVM environments, with XC VKSM.
Yeah.
And then obviously, as you mentioned, Moonriver is one which we're really looking forward to working on. We're in discussions, we're pushing that, and sure, hopefully that will be ready by next month or so.
Moonriver is a whole other can of worms with their XC token and all the possibilities
exactly.
there. Yeah. And I'm just curious, Thibault, you mentioned the Rainbow Boost a little while ago. Is this sort of an incentive program to get people to perform the actions that you guys are looking for?
I think there was two things to it. There was number one was obviously how to interact with users and obviously create that sort of interactivity between the products and incentivizing them in being driven, to Bifrost specifically for VKSM.
Okay.
And there was a lot of thought around that in terms of how can we engage with the community, how can we leverage from this opportunity, and then obviously we thought back to it and we said, I think the most important is obviously to engage with people which have a clear interest and understanding in Bifrost in terms of what can be done on Bifrost, and we just thought this whole idea of incentivization, creating utility around obviously BNC, but also utility around one's actions, and then those actions being incentivized and then being created 2022. I think the Bifrost team was very, very sort of smart in the way they've decided to position themselves in terms of product releases and updates, because obviously, as you'd mentioned earlier, liquid staking is coming out at the right time, given how parachains are developing. And obviously, more importantly, we've launched the staking liquidity protocol just recently. We were quite good.
Yeah.
It required a lot of coordination and a lot of thinking from the team in terms of the incentive campaign and how that makes sense for the sort of the longevity of the the project, the utility and the value, and how we can sort of incentivize on-chain behavior. Number one. And then number two, obviously we've decided to go about with these different airdrops, with the Kusama Parachain which expired, and that sort of engagement in order to bring more TVL and more users which were probably not familiar with Bifrost. I would say that was sort of the tricky thing, which still is very tricky. But no, coming back to what you were saying, yeah, most definitely, this is the sort of first staking liquidity derivative which is launched, and we've got a pretty busy upcoming roadmap in terms of what we're looking to deliver within the next sort of weeks and months, which we can also touch upon after.
Well, I don't want to read too much into the structure of Kusama here, but you do have HRMP channels open with Kala, Moonriver, and Karura, and StateMine as well. Do you have any plans to do liquid staking products for these Parachain tokens?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, obviously, Tyrone can fill up on the information as well. But yeah, most definitely, very broadly speaking, we obviously have a roadmap in terms of what we're looking to prioritize and what makes sense, given the ecosystems of these different sort of parachains and how developed they are. Yeah, most definitely, that's part of the roadmap. I think the Kusama, there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of the utility and use cases around it, because we are looking for it to be a pretty important pillar and asset within Kusama, and then eventually EVM environments, with XC VKSM.
Yeah.
And then obviously, as you mentioned, Moonriver is one which we're really looking forward to working on. We're in discussions, we're pushing that, and sure, hopefully that will be ready by next month or so.
Moonriver is a whole other can of worms with their XE token and all the possibilities
exactly.
there. Yeah. And I'm just curious, Thibault, you mentioned the Rainbow Boost a little while ago. Is this sort of an incentive program to get people to perform the actions that you guys are looking for?
I think there was two things to it. There was, number one was obviously how to interact with users and obviously create that sort of interactivity between the products and incentivizing them in being driven, to Bifrost specifically for VKSM.
Okay.
And there was a lot of thought around that in terms of how can we engage with the community, how can we leverage from this opportunity, and then obviously we thought back to it and we said, I think the most important is obviously to engage with people which have a clear interest and understanding in Bifrost in terms of what can be done on Bifrost, and we just thought this whole idea of incentivization, creating utility around obviously BNC, but also utility around one's actions, and then those actions being incentivized and then being created into value, which is then stored on chain. And we're looking at different ways in being sort of, I would say, innovative, and I think that's sort of what the team's achieved there. So the raindrop campaign, obviously it's just at the beginning. People have to get used to it. They have to understand what is required in terms of getting more incentives for different actions and behaviors you're doing. But I think it's a very smart way of being able to have people sort of engage with what we're doing, understanding what we're doing, and then being sort of, I would say, given some sort of incentive for that. So it's been pretty cool. I mean, I've been sort of watching the team develop that. We were speaking about it, and obviously as a user as well. I think that's how you create value.
Okay, so what's the state of the program right now? How do people accumulate these raindrops so far?
So there are obviously various ways in terms of how one can accumulate. I think Tyrone, you can go into more details if needed. But there's obviously there's the minting of the VKSM. There's obviously the participation in the single token. There's obviously past behavior, which is obviously quite important as well to this incentive program. Past behavior and past collaboration, past participation in crowdloans. That's also related to why certain users are receiving the airdrops. And then there's obviously the idea of staking BNC. So we're trying to incentivize users in different sort of behaviors within what's out there on the Bifrost, on the product front.
And once people collect these raindrops, what can I do with these raindrops?
Yeah, so in terms of the sort of the incentive, the rewards there are a number of different on-chain sort of records which are then sort of recorded, and then there's obviously participation between what we're looking to do on the future of Bifrost in terms of governance as well, votes.
Sure. Yep.
There's also, I think, things the community likes to see, in terms of whitelisting for certain, next sort of things that will happen on Bifrost, which will take place. There's obviously the NFTs, which we're working on something which is going to be quite nice, and which will be sort of official the next couple of weeks.
Okay,
so there are different sort of reward structures we're looking to provide to the user from on a short-term perspective, in terms of the NFTs, the whitelisting, but then also on the fact that I think users, they're key. They're key to every project.
Yeah.
And obviously we have to listen to them in terms of their feedback regarding the product, its utility, and if it makes sense. And they should be rewarded in having a voice, in terms of what is the future of certain directions we are going to take. So we are looking to really provide this opportunity for users to really have a say in what we're doing.
Yeah, understood. And this is a great way for you to track the most hardcore users among your community as well, and it's and reward them in any rewards that come in the future.
Yeah, most definitely.
So coming down the line, let's talk about 6 months out. We were talking a little bit about in the beginning about moving everything over to Polkadot Parachain, but as far as more features are concerned, what can we expect to be rolling out on Bifrost in the next little while?
The most important version for Bifrost is to do the cross-chain liquidity derivative for not only Parachains and cross-chains for external blockchains, Polygon, Ethereum, but the cross-chain is under the fully decentralized way, I have to say. And it actually depends on the level of decentralized solution on the cross-chain bridge team. Maybe the team of the project, like a normal recently, had a lot of communication with Snowfolks, and they are actually building the bridge between Polkadot and Ethereum. So the solution of their bridge is quite I think the most decentralized way we've ever seen in all of the all of the cross-chain solutions. So we are quite expect the solution can be fully prepared in the next couple of months, and I think that's a great step to the initial cross-chain V token for different Parachains. And we have already done the V Ether for Ethereum 2.0, but that was deployed on the smart contract of EVM, and it's not the Sub3 version. And what we want to do is mint the derivative and redeem the derivative on Sub3 version, and the asset is also the Sub3 based. You fluently cross to Ethereum and EVM compatible blockchains with no centralized step during the cross chain, and that's the I think that's the version that we want to do in the next 6 or 1 year.
That's very exciting. I haven't thought about that bridge for a while, but it's good to hear that they're still getting closer to their goal there. So that's cool. So you get some liquidity coming over from EVM chains. What about your DeFi stack? What are you going to do when you have all this liquidity floating around?
We are now focusing on the DEXs like Zenlink and Solarbeam on Moonriver, and the DEXs in the for V Ether on the Ethereum projects. So the first step is DEXs, of course, and the next step is the money market projects like borrowing loan and the leveraging projects and the bond projects. So we are looking to collaborate with Konami and Moonwell and Tiger protocol to do the on the top of the V token. So we will do a wrapped derivative upon the liquid derivatives. So I think we just focus on the underlying assets of how to say that we actually doing the staking derivative is layer 1. I think layer 0 is staking and layer 1 is the staking derivative, and level 2 is the protocols upon on these assets, like DESIX and the bound and the lending and borrowing, and maybe level 3 is the liquidity protocols.
Continuing on what Tyrone was saying, I obviously think, we're obviously focusing on that first layer, but I'm also looking at, the next point being, the staking liquidity derivatives are live, such as VKSM.
Yep.
You can create a single token farming, you can create a double token, pool. Then what is sort of the next step in terms of utility? And obviously we've noticed that, engaging with different projects, a lot of projects obviously still, working and building. So we are also getting certain limitations in terms of, I'll give you just a very basic example. Okay. If we want to have VKSM as being a collateral asset, we need that to be sort of, assessed on a risk perspective.
Yeah.
And risk evaluations now, certain actors out there providing these risk evaluation on these assets haven't yet sort of defined their processes on Parachain assets. So we're sort of working towards like wanting to create utility, but also on the other hand, we're sort of confronted to the realities that there are processes which are not done yet. And on the other hand, when we are looking at like borrowing protocols in like, for example, Moonriver, like with Moonwell, as Tyrone mentioned, there's an issue there with Chainlink as well and price oracles and these dexes which are not listed on centralized exchanges, not having price feeds, so that doesn't link into their requirements. So anyways, we're confronted to a few things there. But to answer your question, I'm really focusing on utility, to be perfectly honest with you. Because you see a lot of things out there where people are obviously marketing about relationships and partnerships and everybody's getting quite happy and stuff, but at the end of the day, when you're a user, they're like, okay, well, this has been announced, but nothing's happening. You can't do anything. And I'm actually quite frustrated as a user when that happens to me. So we're really looking to as Tyrone was saying, we try to build the basics, and then obviously already I sort of start working with Tyrone, speaking with the projects and going, guys, okay, we have this ready. What can we do now? So I'm really looking forward to seeing how these different staking liquidity derivatives, which we're building with those teams, have utility and use cases for end users. I think that's really key for us. And if we can achieve that, I mean, that would be obviously a great milestone. And then obviously then seeing on a cross-chain basis, in terms of, you spoke to Composable the other day, what's going to happen there with other ecosystems, and obviously with what happened with Terra, where's that community going to go? Are we going to see some inflow into .sama or not? So I'm just looking forward to seeing how market sentiment changes as well.
I mean, we're so early. What can we say? We're just too early. This is so exciting, guys. Is there anything else you want to leave our audience with before we go?
No, I mean, I definitely think that you guys should obviously, keep an eye on obviously VKSM and what we're looking to do there in terms of use cases. And with the other, Kusama Parachains, and then further down the line with what we're looking to do with the Polkadot Parachains, with the staking liquidity there, I think we're looking to really build something in a decentralized way, which can really add value for users and obviously to the projects in terms of, driving capital utilization for these assets, and then driving sort of sharing liquidity to these different projects, which are looking to build on top of these different protocols. So I think, let's just keep building and keep being patient, and we're all gonna be happy at the end.
Tyrone, very nice to meet you finally, buddy. Great to have you on the show, and thanks again for everything you're doing over there.
Yes, thanks, Jay.
We'll talk to you guys soon.
See you next time,
Thanks a lot, Jay.